Hello, and welcome to another painting video. My name is Adam, and today I have a still life in oil paint to show you. The entire process was recorded, so if you just want to watch me paint, go ahead and mute me. For the rest of you, if you've ever wanted to make your own still life, I hope this video can be a guide. I'll do my best to illustrate my method and thoughts throughout. So enjoy, and remember, I'm always around to answer your questions in the comments below. So the first and most important thing I want to mention here is that there is a 3x3 grid on the reference photo, and that I've transferred that same grid onto my painting surface with a pencil. The grid's going to help you with a lot of things, mainly your accuracy and your speed. With the grid, you can quickly pinpoint where your shapes should go because of how they are resting on the lines. You don't have to do a 3x3 grid, you can have as many lines as you want, as long as the reference image and the surface you're working on are the same shape, you're good to go. So the reason why I did a grid at all was because the image was a little complicated and I was feeling like I wasn't sure if I wanted to go through with this painting. I came at the painting with very little energy. I wasn't feeling very committed to what I was going to do next, so the grid allowed me to quickly establish a lay-in, and I was able to look at that and say, yes, this is worth doing. The grid is something I can't remember if I've ever used on my own before, and it worked out really well. I think this painting came together very easily, and that's also because the image was in black and white, which is also something I never do, but I'm definitely going to be doing it from now on, because it's so clear what you need to do. Usually I'm very distracted by color, and personally I don't really care about color all that much. I'm much more of a value-minded painter. So this was great. This is one way to get started quickly. And of course I have a color reference, which I'll bring out later, but for now I'm just looking for the big shapes of light and dark. So let's actually start talking about what I'm doing here. I believe this step 1 was called reusing old paint, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I have not put out any paint yet. That's the next step. This is just the leftovers from my last painting, just 2 reds, transparent red oxide and transparent maroon, which I pretty much always use for my lands. I'm using big brushes, I'm using leftover paint thinner, and I'm using paper towels to just push stuff around until I'm happy. And what you're not seeing is all of the breaks that I take. I'll be sure to point them out, but there's many times where I just stopped painting and I just did anything else. I read a little bit, I looked at my PC, I took a walk, I went to go cook or something like that, or I went to sleep. I constantly took breaks during this one, and it's because I just wasn't sure if I should keep going. So I wanted to just look away, look at something else, and come back with fresh eyes and see, yeah, I could pull this off. You know, at this point, I was pretty happy with what I was seeing. It felt very messy, rustic, and had a lot of character to it. So I went to sleep, I came back in the morning after having cleaned everything up, and I started fresh. So let's talk paint. With the exception of this titanium white, which I'm not quite sure if it's non-toxic. I know it is harmful to ocean life, but besides that, I think every other tube of paint that I have is now non-toxic, and I'm so very excited about that. Even if someone didn't ask, I just can't shut up about how I am now painting with a full non-toxic palette. That yellow is not a cadmium yellow, it's bismuth yellow. Yellow ochre is one of the safest colors there is. That ultramarine blue from Grumbacher is also non-toxic. That green, it's a very weird green. What green is it? I gotta find the tube. Hold up. It's Terra Verde, or Tierra Verde, whatever. It's pretty much the exact green that I needed, and I would have never got this one. It was actually a gift from Amanda, so thank you, Amanda. So I did a lot of research about oil paint toxicity, and the end result was that it is mostly a non-toxic endeavor, so you should feel safe. Even if you're using cadmiums, as long as you're not spraying them into the air, being very reckless with them, you'll be just fine. Also there, you saw that I was using lavender spike oil instead of Gamsol or turpentine or any other paint thinner. Lavender spike oil is super effective as a paint thinner. It works just as well as Gamsol. It's just maybe 3 times more expensive, so that's a problem. But other than that, it smells pretty cool, and it does what I need it to do. And I don't think I'll be going back to turpentine or other harmful paint thinners. So, okay, let's talk about the painting. Step 1, after you have your lay-in and after you've let it dry for a little bit, I've been doing this and it's been working out. The paint, the old red paint that you see, the underlayer, it's pretty dry. It's had at least a night or two to get fairly settled. And now I'm looking for local color, and I'm putting in transparent layers of paint, washes that go on top of what's already there. But for the yellow on the lemons, I felt pretty confident that the one I chose straight from the tube, bismuth yellow, it was just the most perfect lemon yellow that I've ever seen. So I went with it. I went a little heavier on those. But other than that, I'm putting this very thin layer of blue in the background because I know the painting's very warm overall, so I need some of these blues to help contrast that. Otherwise, it'd just be a little bit of overwhelming. And that's something I always have to keep in mind because I forget it. I love warm colors. I love yellows and reds and browns, and I can overdo it. And if you do overdo it, then nothing looks... Those warm earth tones are kind of lost. So you need the contrast to not only cool off the painting, but to also highlight those beautiful warm sunlit colors. I think that made sense. So anyways, let's talk about the reference itself, the photo, the still life. That is an original photograph that I shot last year during summer lockdown 2020. And I was doing Jeff Watts's online courses, and I took a still life class with him and Meadow Gist, and I was inspired. I did some of my favorite paintings that I've ever done in that short course, but I was using their photos for reference. I was using pictures of flowers that they took, pictures of like onions and corns and vegetables and stuff like that. Wonderful stuff, wonderful experience, but it wasn't mine, and I have never done anything like that for myself. So I spent a good afternoon arranging just some produce that we had in our kitchen, and this was the photo that I got, and I was so proud of it, and it sat in a folder for a whole year, and now I'm finally getting around to painting it. And as I mentioned earlier, I still wasn't even sure if I wanted to paint it. I was very non-committal, and I don't know why. I wonder why that is. Surely it's because if I failed, that means I'm not as good as I thought I was. So that it was just a psychological wall that I had to jump over in order to do this. So that's pretty typical of artists. They're very in their head. They're very tied. Their self-worth is tied to their artistic ability, and it can sometimes be crippling. Sometimes you'll just feel like not doing anything. You'll feel very lazy, and it's not because you're a lazy person. It's just because you're so scared of failing. And I feel like that's a very modern mindset because of the way we pressure each other towards perfection and to success. We somehow got it in our minds that successful people do not fail, when that's obviously not true. The most successful people are constantly, hilariously failing. I guess failure itself just seems like a bad word. But we need to embrace failure. We need to understand that, first of all, the world does not end when we fail. Nothing happens when you fail other than maybe you learn something, and you dust yourself off and you pick yourself up and you try again the next day. And also, if there was no risk for failure, then the thing you were doing was timid, tame, and maybe not worth the effort. So if there's no risk of failure, then are you really pushing yourself? So the point I'm trying to make here is that I took a course, and it was very guided. I had reference. I had another artist's example, but now the training wheels are off. Now it's just me, my camera, a couple lemons, a banana. Will I be able to create a composition that's interesting, something that has meaning? And I know it might seem fairly mundane, this assortment of produce sitting on a countertop, but this was my first home with Amanda, and we were cooking like crazy, and it was lockdown 2020, and we got a cookbook for Indian food, and it just opened my mind so much. So this painting is super important to me. It's just an entire summer wrapped up in this composition, so I love it. I definitely recommend every artist out there to do things that matter to them. This painting represents my culinary awakening. I'm no longer the picky eater I once was. I was afraid of onions and peppers and all that stuff. I was afraid of flavor. So this will always be a reminder. I'm definitely keeping it for myself. I thought about giving it away for my dad's birthday, but no, this one's mine. I keep saying that though, and I definitely should be selling some of these paintings. They're starting to pile up, but that's another story. So anyway, this part 4, is focal point. I decided to, just like the painting with the onions and the corn, do this piecemeal, do this one section at a time. Of course, that didn't work out. I can't help myself. I'm too impatient. It's something I'm embracing lately, which I really shouldn't be. I need to just say, I'm going to work on this, and then that's it. Put the brush down, go do other things. That's it for the day. But no, I tend to just paint all over. So the idea was that I would just paint the lemons, only the lemons. But here I am doing everything at once. But it's okay. One thing I will say though is that the highlights, the pure white spots on the chilies and the lemons, I did them way too soon, and I've already painted over them like maybe 2 or 3 times. So each time I'm doing that, I'm essentially wiping it off, because I want those final touches, those sparkles on the lemons, to really stand out, to not be so ordinary looking. I don't want it to look like just a brush stroke. They have to be unexpected and excite me. I know that sounds silly, but it's really the most interesting part to me, is how an artist does that final pure white wisp of paint. So I don't think I achieved it, to be honest, but that's what I'm going for, and that's the point, right? It's the journey, not the end result. So what's happening now is I have gloves on. That would mean that it's the start of a new day. Every time I started painting, I would throw on the gloves, and I think it's not because I was afraid of the toxicity of the paint, which I have mentioned is non-toxic. It's just because it's nice to start out feeling fresh and clean, and everything being neat and tidy. There's nothing that makes you feel like working more than just having a clean workspace waiting for you. So I recommend, if you're a messy painter like I am, do your best to try to keep things tidy, and I think you'll be much more productive. So here I'm using a clean dry brush. I'm not adding any paint yet. That's how I start every session, with just moving what was already there and is almost dry but not completely dry. But now that I've established the focal point, I'm going to start branching out to the rest of the painting, including the drapery, that's what you would call it, which is a very complicated cloth, and I kind of regret using it, and I've used it before in this painting here of a bunch of game devices, and I actually really like this painting, but I definitely slacked off, went very lazy with the drapery. And this was from the same photo shoot, you could say. I started with a bunch of produce, but then I was like, alright, what else could I put in this box? So I put in a bunch of Game Boys and stuff. But yeah, that was an okay painting, but I was like, next time I'm going to be so much more diligent and careful when doing that drapery. And I was going to plan it all out, draw it out very perfectly with the pencil, but I didn't do that. I was too lazy, so this is the best I could do freehand, alla prima. And that takes us to the final part, the rest of it. The vase, it's in the background, it's full of chopsticks. It's a very pretty vase, but I did not want it to be the focus, so intentionally just keep it very simple. Don't draw attention to it. It's just there for variation and to create a sense of depth. So always keep that in mind. You have your focal point, and then there's the rest of it. These things need to support your focal point. They need to have interesting lines and curves that lead the viewer's eye back to your focal point. They are not the point of the painting. So you can kind of see that. The box angles towards the fruit, the book in the background, the chopsticks, they all kind of point downward so that you can look at that warm glow of the lemons, which is the point. You can see all the extra stuff in the background and how I've left it out completely because they didn't seem important to me. But you can see at the top of the middle lemon next to the banana, there's kind of a hard edge right next to the banana, and then the edge on the left of the lemon is soft. And that is always something I try to look for. A combination of soft edges and hard edges, of straights and curves. So I think this composition worked really well because of that. There's a lot of different kinds of variation of shape. You can also see the blown out edge of the vase. The right side of the vase kind of just smushed out with my thumb. Just pushed out the paint. The edge is completely destroyed, but I like the way it looks. So that's also not accurate, but I don't need to be accurate. It wasn't my goal for this painting, and I know I could have, and maybe I should have been super uptight and accurate and constipated in the way I painted this, but it wasn't my feeling towards it. So it's something I think about a lot and I struggle with. My own laziness. As I've mentioned, this painting took several days, and it's not because it was particularly hard or complicated or daunting. It was just because I took a lot of breaks and I painted very leisurely and in a very fun way, in a very unuptight way. So this is pretty much the best I could do while kind of painting in a very nonchalant, unfocused, constantly checking on what Amanda's doing, or chasing the cat around, watching Netflix, reading a book, all the different stuff I was doing while also trying to make a painting. I don't know if I would recommend that kind of workflow. You really need to hunker down sometimes and do some long efforts and really flex your seeing skills, your how close can you pay attention skill, because that's what really matters in any sort of art form. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about comedians and how the best jokes out there come from little kernels of wisdom that we all have known deep inside, but no one has said it before. No one has paid attention to that little thing and put it in a joke before. What was that joke I was so hype about? Do you remember? Amanda's in the background. I don't remember, but there was another one that I saw on Twitter about a couple that aggressively tells the other to look at their cat. Remember that one? It's like no matter what they're doing, they need to look at the cat right now because it's doing something cute. And I was cracking up at this joke all day. I know I've butchered it, but the point is, they noticed this little thing that we already knew, but they pointed it out. So that's the same with visual art. What can you notice that we all have seen before, but you painted it in a very expressive and interesting and fresh and new way? That's what makes a painting great. That's my new working theory. How much are you willing to notice? So that's also how far are you willing to go and sit down and stare at a thing. So before painting this, I was kind of working my way up to it. I was staring at the photo for days, just looking if I could find something unique in this vision that I could bring forth with paint. And that was my goal. Did I achieve it? I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments below. But that's it. We did it. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I will be back fairly soon with a new video. I have a brand new camera set up, so it'll be much different looking. I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be a portrait of someone you might know. So until then, have a great day. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and take care.